Doctor Who throughout its time has had some genuinely weird and strange spin-offs, some of them official by the BBC, and some of them have just licensed certain characters from the show. There's been one since Doctor Who's revival, back when Doctor Who was on the air during the 80s, but specifically there was a lot during Doctor Who's downtime and cancellation in the 90s. In today's video we're going to be trying to focus on some of these strange and wacky spin-offs that happened from the 90s up until quite recently. I think I'm going to start with some of the more regular normal ones before getting into some of the incredibly weird and deranged spin-offs that we've had over the years. But I want to start off with Downtime, personally one of my favourite spin-offs from the 90s. Downtime is a pretty campy, choppy Doctor Who spin-off, but clearly has quite a bit of soul and heart behind it. We see Nicholas Courtney returning as the Brigadier, and we even see Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. In Downtime we get a pretty coherent plot, we see the return of the Yetis, and see some great characters in this. The editing and certain plot points is where it lets it down, but it's a pretty enjoyable experience to watch. I don't feel like I'm watching something that is too far removed from classic Who, but at the same time it comes into something of its own. Some people might not like this because again, this isn't a proper professional production, but it feels quite unique and feels actual bearable to watch. Which genuinely, in regards to a lot of these spin-offs, that is like saying this is a 10 out of 10. It's bearable, it's enjoyable, and I recommend it to any Whovians who might have an hour spare. You won't regret watching this, you'll probably enjoy it. It's a pretty wacky, enjoyable experience, and it's something that I have watched quite a few times at this point, something that is good for background noise, and now and again it's fun to watch with friends. The film was released in 1995 and follows the Web of Fear with the Great Intelligence plotline, and it has a genuinely unique story. It's also pretty notable for introducing the character of Kate Lebridge Stewart, which is a recurring character in Doctor who can even be seen in Doctor Who to this day with Disney Who. Now the next ones I want to just briefly mention are the 3 Autons films. Again, they're pretty self-explanatory, they feature the Autons. Now the Auton trilogy isn't as enjoyable as Downtime, but it's great seeing the Autons and their theme again alongside the Nesting Consciousness. It is a okay watch, and I would recommend at least watching it once if you are a Doctor Who viewer, because again, it's something just fun and cool that you probably haven't seen before, which is a semi-enjoyable experience. But I don't want to harp on these too much, because these are probably the most well-known ones. Now this next spin-off is a pretty recent one, based off of a character from the 6th Doctor's era, Syl. Now this Syl movie is a pretty strange and decently high quality flick, but if you're like me who finds Syl's character pretty annoying at the best of times, this spin-off isn't for you. Now as much as I enjoyed the 6th Doctor episode, Syl as a character does not need his own flick. Don't get me wrong, it's watchable and its plot isn't weak by any means, but it isn't great, it isn't something that I would personally recommend to people, but if you are a fan of that 6th Doctor story, you might genuinely be a fan of this and want to see a follow-up on Syl's character. I don't know many people that do, but again, this is just one of the more unique ones out there that came up very recently. This came out in 2019, which is just insane to me. I genuinely think, and I think it's arguable to say, that the best thing that came from this film was a really funny picture of Jeremy Corbyn, a MP in the UK, holding up a Blu-ray for this film.
Tomorrow. Show me the way to solve this deadly dilemma!
If we are to save you, if I am to represent you in court, you must tell me how this whole sorry saga first began.
Genuinely, it's an understatement to say I hate the character of Syl and his voice. I just hate it. The next few films I'm actually going to group together due to one returning villain race, which is the Sontarans. We see the Sontarans in these films alongside some other returning villains, but we also see some returning actors, including Carol Ann Ford, but she doesn't return as Susan in the same way that Sophie Aldred doesn't return as Ace. If you're a fan of Sontarans and some classic Doctor Who villains, I highly recommend Shakedown and the Mindgames saga. We see some great Sontarans on screen, and we see some pretty decent plot threads and pretty good acting. I mean, there are some parts, of course.
It's not supposed to be like this. It's not fair!
But I love how the Sontarans look in these films. Shakedown gives them a pretty unique design with a red costume, and the Mindgames saga gives them a pretty accurate look.
Time to die.
I mean, these films aren't the best thing by any standard. I'm not saying these are the magnum opus for Doctor Who, but they're pretty enjoyable. They're something that, again, if you are a classic Who fan, I'd put on in the background. Now, I've saved the genuinely weird and pretty gross for last, which is Zygon When Being You Just Isn't Enough, a film that I don't recommend anybody watching, and if you do watch this, I recommend that you're over the age of 18. It tries to be a pretty raunchy Doctor Who porno. It doesn't work. It says Zygon in the title, but shows a Zygon for like a split second due to budgetary reasons. It's really strange. I don't think it would be really connected to Doctor Who unless they showed a 3-second clip of a Zygon and put Zygon in the title. It's clear that people making this wanted to make a really strange film and decided to just use Doctor Who licensing at the time to, you know, put it in. This film was being produced in 2003 and then later released in 2008. Some people call this the golden age of Doctor Who, and it was released right in the middle of it. I do not recommend this film to anybody. It's weird, it's strange, it's completely NSFW, and there's just no reason to watch it. You gain nothing from watching this film whatsoever. There isn't any good connection to Doctor Who, it isn't funny, it isn't fun to watch, it isn't just camp. It's just strange, and they clearly tried to use an existing Doctor Who IP and character to push this strange film. For this video specifically, I tried to keep it so that at least the spin-offs I'm covering have some official characters from the show in. There is a lot of other spin-offs that clearly don't and just try and get around the whole copyright issue, and BBB have done that with tons of other films. They're the ones who have made the Zygon film and several other Doctor Who spin-off media, and I don't really want to cover them. There are some really strange Doctor Who spin-off media, there are some more mediocre ones, and some that, again, just they try to avoid Doctor Who copyright, which, again, I try to avoid in this video. But have you watched any of these strange Doctor Who spin-offs, and what were your thoughts on them? But I've been your host Samuel, and I'll catch you in the next video.